Okay, now can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yeah.
All
How are
right.
you? Good to see you.
Yeah, great. Good to see you too. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So that was an interesting question that you asked, and I've hit record, so we're just gonna go with the flow, record this, and see where it goes. And if it's useful, we can upload it onto the group. I think it'd be interesting for people in the group to hear this discussion and what we talked about, because I think this is a problem for a lot of people.
Yeah, sure. And should I introduce everyone to the problem?
I'm just going to read it out, and then
All right.
we can have a discussion. So what you mentioned in your post was the dilemma of productivity and self-esteem. In the inner search of reasons for some of my procrastination lately, I have found that it was caused by my subconscious framing, my thinking, quote, how do I want to spend my time, rather than what purposes do I want to achieve. So I changed that way of thinking, which mostly fixed the issue and created huge new waves of productive focus. However, by doing that, I have quickly noticed another problem. My, quote, purpose is in a big way linked to managing my self-esteem. In other words, when I have high self-esteem and feel no reason to prove my value before myself, the world, God, or other people, I also don't feel the need of or the pressure to create value and productively use my time. This in turn causes me to fall into laziness and degenerate in both body and spirit. However, when I put the focus and start creating value on some level, I feel like I am trying to, quote, prove myself to the world, which in turn decreases my self-esteem. Have you guys faced the same problem? How do you get the best of both worlds, both productively and high self-esteem? I have some ideas, but I would be very interested in hearing yours. And you've linked a picture, which is basically slaves being whipped and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, this is really great. Really great in the sense that you've articulated a problem really well. I imagine going through it isn't the greatest.
Well, it's a problem. So if you call something a problem, then it means that it's some kind of wall and you have to either break through or jump or walk around. So you have to find some way. But right now the wall is still standing.
So I want to get very specific on what you said, right? Because I think that that'll help move us into areas where we can start to try to solve this. So when you said that you were procrastinating and found your subconscious framing, how do I want to spend my time, rather than what purposes do I want to achieve? What exactly were you doing before, and what did you do after? What were the changes that you made, and what did you find specifically happened when you made those changes?
So basically, it is, I think, a bit linked to my philosophy of life. So it is about more being than doing. And doing comes from being, and one focuses only on being. And if you get it might be just because of my certain way of practicing this philosophy. So I would just focus on being here and doing whatever I feel like at the moment. And actually, it is a way of doing things that I used to teach to people as well. That if you don't want to have problems with self-discipline, you just don't use self-discipline. You just do what you feel is feel you like to do the best, which sounds good if you restrict it to the things that you actually need to do. But overall, I think that we human beings have a lot of things that are like lazy, destructive, time wasting, that are kind of not worth doing, but we feel like doing anyway. Uh, and examples of that are like excessive movie watching, Netflix series, games, video games in particular, not board games. And all of these are connected by one thing, that they are hugely stimulating. And because of this very strong stimulation, they create habits, they create this hunger for this more and more stimulation. So if one just does whatever he feels like and is kind of in this stuff that he sometimes watches movies, he sometimes does this, he sometimes plays some games, then if he does what he feels like all the time, then he will do these things all the time because they are really stimulating and they are really absorbing. So
Can I just stop you there for a
yeah.
moment? Because we're talking about procrastination. So I haven't heard anything about procrastinating from what?
Well, from everything you actually need to do.
Right. So what is that for you?
For me, it's mostly learning, doing research for my thesis, some training, doing things that are helping me on the business, get some new business partners, get some potential new sources of earning. Basically, those four.
But so that's a bit nebulous, right? Because biz training moving towards maybe potential streams of.
Yeah, so I have some concrete tasks that I haven't done that I still need to do. For example, my LinkedIn profile is still very, very bare, still in shambles. I still don't really have any concrete curriculum vitae there. I don't have my life history of my work history or my skills. Just some words about that. Well, I can speak Japanese, and maybe you want to hire me as a translator, but not too much, not enough. This is one of the things that I have been procrastinating on. Another one is going forward with my research. So I have this very, very big Japanese book that I really need to get everything out of. Need to read. I have been translating it for some time, and I need to finish it. But of course, it takes time. So I have
Do
been.
you enjoy doing that?
It is not boring, but not stimulating either, and it's very taxing for my mind. So it is very tiring. So I have been doing this. Let me show you this trick with habits. So I have been having this. Yeah, let's show this here. These cards where I mark that I successfully finished, for example, half an hour of reading this stuff, and then I take a break, and then another half an hour, which is a system that I have learned from you, and it is working much better than my previous system that I was using. However, and it helps certainly. However, I still found that on some days I would still barely do any of these habits.
Having plans to do it. So you'd go into the day planning to do it, but you find that you're just ignoring it and you're not following through.
Well, planning is the hard part because usually I don't really have a big plan for the day. I have some things that I need to do. I have some flexible time, and I just do what I feel like doing. And um, sometimes I succeed. Like I think yesterday, no, 2 days ago, was a day where I succeeded in all my habits, everything. Yesterday, I succeeded in part of my habits, a big part. But
So
there are days,
I'm a
yeah.
little bit confused. So let me understand what you mean by succeeded at my habits, because I don't know what that means. If you have not set yourself to do something in a schedule, I don't know what you mean by habits.
Well, it's not habit in a way that this world is correctly used. It's not real habits. Real habits have, of course, this way you enter them and you always do them from at the set hour or in a set opportunity. I have just some things that I want to do every day.
You want to do them. You really
Yeah,
want to do them.
some. Mm, it's not like I don't want to. Let's name it
So
like that.
why are you doing them?
Because all of them um, are building me in some way, are
Says who?
making me
Where did
better,
that
are
come from?
growing me.
Where did the
What?
idea that they might be making you better come from? How do you know they're making you better?
Well, it's a big part from experience. Some of them are connected to my long time purposes, like I train my voice. This is one of my habits which I have been slacking off, like I think the most. Um, but there are things like prayer, there are things like physical exercise, there are things like meditation, which from experience, from my personal experience, I know that they change me as a human being for the better on some levels, and or my thought diary. This as well. This helps me look better into my thoughts, into my motives behind what I do.
Hmm. So
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 yeah.
how do you know if you're going to do them if you don't plan? Like, where does this idea of I have things to do come from if you're not planning them?
Um, well, I don't plan when I will do them. I just set them up as possible actions for the day.
When does that
You could
happen?
say it
Does
like
it
that.
happen in the morning or the day before?
No, I just have them written on this piece of paper, and I have them like set on default as like on default every day I'm going to do this, and maybe do this
Okay,
because
so
some.
it's a goal that you have every day of the week, but it's not set at a specific time. There's no routine
Yes,
for it. It's just
yes,
whenever I kind of feel like it.
yes. This might be one of the problems though with it. However,
I think so.
yeah. I'm sure you do. But and I have been trying to uh, set up a routine, but to set up a routine, I want to really do it earlier than I have my routine right now. So I would need to start my day way earlier because if I don't, then sometimes I will have to get off my routine just to do things I need in the morning because sometimes I have like work to do, uh, clients to meet, customers to meet, and I need to do it in the morning. So I need to set up my routine earlier, but for that I would need to wake up earlier and everything. So
So tell me about that then. What is a normal day for Christoph?
a normal day for me is uh, I well actually it's a difficult question because Yeah, because some days are really, really like good, productive.
What time are you waking at?
It's around like 11, 12 o'clock, uh, which is, um, well, not ideal. I want to wake up earlier, but at the same time, if I get things done, then it's not that terrible because I got things done. However, the problem is the days when I don't get anything done. So there are days, for example, when I'm reading up until like early morning, which is good because reading furthers all of my goals. Reading helps me focus.
Uh,
Reading is
I
a good thing.
agree. If the reading is being integrated, if your cognition is not tired, and if you have the ability to take what you're reading in, I agree. Late night reading can be a waste of time in many cases because
Yeah, yeah.
you're not taking in, because you're spent basically from the everything that's happened in the day. So who knows is the answer to that, I would say. That's that's something that I would recommend that you start testing. See what you can remember from the day before, from what you've read the night before, and you know, then you'll have evidence whether that is actual productive time, because we don't know if it's productive time if you're not carrying over into the next day. Like, you can read, sure, you can say, oh, I'm reading the text, but if you're not actually holding it in your mind, is it really useful?
Well, if I'm taking notes, then it is. But if I'm not, then yeah, I know. For example, reading philosophy when I'm sleepy is not a good thing
Hmm.
because yeah, I don't understand anything. I keep reading it anyway, and sometimes I do this. Yeah, certainly. So this is certainly not a good use of my time. I'm talking about when I'm still focused.
Hmm.
So when I'm focused and I'm reading, and the time just passes by, and yeah,
So
it's
what I've really found is that the more complex cognitive capacity that a task requires, the better off we are doing it earlier in the day, because we have more ability in the early parts of the day cognitively.
I've heard that you have a certain reservoir of focus
Hmm.
and that you exhaust it throughout the day.
Hmm.
And when it's the end of the day, you sometimes don't have any of that left.
Hmm.
However, I've also heard a theory about like people being either early birds
That's
or
horseshit,
night
to be
owls.
honest. Like,
Okay.
to a certain degree, that is true, but I would say it's only true because that's the routine that the person has become accustomed to. We're very malleable. I used to be a night owl. Now I'm an early bird. So it's pretty horseshit.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a night owl. I would just say I have my uh, late routine right now. And
Hmm.
well, when I say routine, I mean like my routine is eating breakfast, brushing my teeth, like keeping hygiene high. But for example, in my routine, there is like prayer in the morning and prayer in the evening. But there is, for example, it's not written when I will do my physical exercise or my meditation or my work or my learning. So it's all sometimes throughout the day, which um, is good in the sense that I don't feel bad when things go south and all my plans are broken. And if I set myself up to like train every morning, then if I don't feel like training in the morning, but for example in the afternoon I go somewhere and go for a walk, then it's still a win. Yeah, but if I set myself up for, but this might also mean that I won't do it at all during the day. which would be good if I do that. Yeah, let's go back to the basics, maybe to the basic topic of the talk, because we are like circling around.
Yeah, but I think it's important to get your sense of how you do it, like what you're calling productive, how you understand productivity, and what creates, because this is very subjective, and for everybody, anybody listening to this will be able to sort of reflect on their own way that they do something. Because what is procrastination? Procrastination is saying, I'll do that eventually, or I'm not doing it now. Ultimately, it's saying, I'm not doing this now, I'll do it at X undetermined time. And if that X undetermined time keeps getting kicked down the road, we become unproductive. And that's the problem, right? Is because this frustration that we have with not being able to get things done, not being able to keep our word, is what hurts us.
For
Which
me,
then, go on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For me, some things I do are definitely procrastinated. Some things maybe not so. Maybe I just do the things that are more stimulating for me, and that's just my problem. Not with procrastination, but with lack of like priorities. But this priority management is the thing that was kind of the topic of this problem. That two ways of thinking: either how to spend my life or what I want to achieve. So how do I want to spend my time? This way of thinking kind of pushes me into spending my time in a most fun way, which is not always the most productive way. And when I go back and think about my purpose, my objectives, my long-term goals, I'm more inclined to spend my time to do things that are more productive. However, at the same time, I don't do the things I feel like doing, which in a way I think is kind of making me like think about myself worse. So I don't. So I feel like I'm not valuing myself because I'm not doing the things I feel like doing, but I'm doing the things that I should do.
But so I think that there's two perspectives in your minds there then, because we're obviously social beings, right? And there's a component here where you're viewing yourself ultimately through the achievements, and those achievements are going to create your ability to say, yes, I'm moving forward, I'm getting my things done, I'm able to have a sense of high self-esteem for myself because I'm doing things. So does that make sense? There's that perspective, and there's also the perspective of, well, how am I spending my time here? What is this worthy? Which is more of a philosophical question.
I think yes, these are two perspectives for this purpose-focused modus operandi. Yes, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, but for you, what is the, like, what's running the system?
What do you mean?
So for like when I go into when I start thinking about planning a project, it has to move me. It has to be something that comes from my heart. It has to be something that I'm like, yeah, this is actually interesting to me. I'm very interested in this. This is something that I would like to collaborate with X amount of people on. It's exciting for me. It has a goal inside it that is something that I want to be a part of, and I want to test myself. all those types of things are the questions that come into play. And they're very subjective for me, and they're very subjective for everybody that takes on a plan. So for you, where do those questions come into the calculus of when you decide what it is that you're going to, use your time with?
You mean when setting up my goals, right?
Or using your time?
Or using my time? Well, when using my time, I definitely just do what I feel like doing. But when I'm setting up my goals, it's I've been trying to do that, and I've been thinking about it for some time, and I think that in a big way my current goals are set on the fundament of my talents, of my passions, of what I want to really do in life. For example, the topic of my thesis this time around, because the last time around it failed because it wasn't like that, but this time around it's based around my interest. It's about the ideas of liberty in Japanese culture and Japanese philosophy, Japanese thought. So this is this is something that's really interesting to me. Some sources are kind of difficult to read and to decipher, but the idea itself and this topic is interesting, and I want to do it. I want to eventually translate the book I'm working with and other books on the same topic. That there are some of these in Japan, not too many, but there are some. So overall, it is something that I want to do.
And
But at the same
that
time,
sounds like long term, right? That sounds like a
yeah,
pretty long term goal. How
yes.
so because we get frustrated as human beings until we get wins. So how are you accumulating wins in that project?
Well, basically it's this card, and I mark whenever I spend like time to do that, and
But is
when
that,
I
do you experience that as a win? Like spending time doing it, is that experienced as a win? Do you get like, yes, I'm so happy that I did that?
spending time, no, I don't really feel it like a win.
Yeah,
Marking it off, it's better,
right.
and
But that
rewarding myself for that, but it's like
that
the
sounds
reward,
like
yeah.
a very mini win. Like a win, I would like consider something like where you publish something, or you get some social interaction on a piece of work that you've done. Does that make
No,
sense?
it's like it's still long term, so it's not something I feel things like that with. No, I don't feel this success, accomplishment, everything when I'm doing this. It's work basically.
So that's to me kind of problematic when it comes to these long-term goals. You have to create some sort of intrinsic win metric for yourself to keep you motivated to keep going. Because if you don't have that, the risk is that you will procrastinate. Because the sense of achievement, the dopamine hit, if you want, is so in the distance that it's easy to get frustrated. And willpower is a resource that runs out. So that's why I see those types of goals being problematic. I'm wondering if you can optimize that goal to integrate some form of social learning where you can operationalize that learning in a way where you get feedback and you get a sense of a win. I don't know, start a YouTube channel, write articles about what you're learning about, the very specific things, and publish them. Because that way you're working towards something and you're also getting a feedback mechanism from people interacting with the work that you're getting. Does that make sense?
Yes, it is an idea. I have been thinking about some things like that. The work I'm doing right now, it's somewhat YouTubeable, if that's the term
Everything
I
is
should use.
YouTubeable. Come on, Krzysztof. Everything.
Yeah, but not everything is watchable.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like the thing, people will. The more niche something is, you're going to always get your audience, and you can find audiences in the world where you can dump your content to. So, you know, but again, that to me, that's just a gateway to excuse land to not start.
Yeah, you're right. I have thought about making some videos lately, though it would give me more motivation to do this, actually, to do this research.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the same time, it would take time.
Sure, it would take time, but then you're getting into how anal you're going to be with the quality. If you just sort of create an audio and put a picture on the front and then hit publish, like that's very low amount of time that's going to take, right?
Yeah. Suppress your inner perfectionist and just publish.
Absolutely. And the more following you get over time, then you can increase the quality. But to me, that's really an alluring gateway to excuse land to not just start.
It is an idea. It is, I think, a very good idea for solving this problem. Yeah, internet is a good thing for doing those things that we all have access to, fortunately, in this day and age. I have to think about it. Yeah, it is a good thing.
Tell me more about the self-esteem part of this equation. Tell me, because, however, by doing that, I've quickly noticed another problem. My purpose is in a big way linked to managing my self-esteem. So when you have high self-esteem, I feel no reason to prove your value before yourself, the world, God, and other people. You don't feel the need or the pressure to create value and productively use your time. So this is what I mean. If you're not generating some form of system for yourself to be on some metric somehow, even if it's externally validated, internally validated, if you don't create that planning metric for yourself to be accountable to something, I think it's going to always be a problem. And this is always the way it is for lots of people. They find that because they don't set themselves some standard, some accountability, it's like, well, we can kick the can down into infinity and just never achieve the project. But unfortunately, we've limited time on the planet. So I'm a big fan of calling bullshit on ourselves and saying, no, either do it or don't. All in or all out. No in between.
Yeah, it is a problem with lack of accountability, though I have, like, there are these practices that are sometimes used that, well, a person will declare in front of everyone on Facebook wall or something that I will in 6 years, no, in like 3 months, I will have godly ABS and I will be ripped. I will be going to gym and I will be ripped in 3 months. And well, this gives some you could say accountability, but at the same time it creates this pressure which is not like inner motivation. It's like forcing you to do it, but then
I don't know about that.
You start hating it. And that's what I've heard actually from some research that one of the big development channels on YouTube did, which has many researchers. The guy is called Rozwojowiec. If someone is from Poland, then you can research it. He has some pretty interesting videos, and he has been doing research on self-discipline and things like that. He has a team of guys who are digging in this research, and he has been teaching about two types of you could say motivation. One which is motivation, which is like internal, which is like I want to do it, and another one which is like I feel forced to do it, which are two different types. And the first one is you could say continuous, you can keep on going, and the second one leads to burnout.
Yeah, and that's where understanding what your actual goal is and generating a very specific goal that you want is important, because I want abs is usually code for I want to get a romantic relationship, or I want to feel good within myself, which is the higher order needs that the person wants. But declaring that I'm going to have abs in 3 months is what is believed at that time to get the higher order goal by, you know, being able to have romance, which actually is a pretty shallow understanding of how, you know, to relate to themselves and how rewarding it would be to, or, you know, what women want at the end of the day. The belief that you can just get abs and then the women flock all over you is kind of ridiculous, and it's a shallow view of how women are. But, you know, for some people, that might be actually what they want. They might want to enter a contest where they're showcasing their actual body, and maybe that would be a place where that goal would be relevant. But yeah, like if you're making those proclamations outwardly and then you begin to resent it because you find out that's not actually what I wanted. Why the fuck did I make the proclamation publicly? Now I'm stuck with this stupid thing, and that's where you resent it. Yeah. So for me, and this is why coaching is so helpful, is to really run through what it is that you want to achieve, understand it really from your heart, the level of your heart, that's in line with your values. It's derived from exactly the way you see yourself in the future, in accordance, in congruence with your values and everything that you are. And, you know, it fits the vision of how you want to be in your future. That's why it's so important to really consider, why am I spending my time this way? What is the purpose for me to do this? Okay, I want to achieve this, but what is that going to allow me to do in terms of my values? What is this communicating about me in the world that I'm moving towards? Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, part of the problem might be because my motivation for like getting this thesis done is mostly my completionist attitude towards things I do. So I want to finally complete the thing that I once started, and which is my studies. At the same time, though, it is also a good excuse to do something good and do something actually interesting and productive, which is the topic I'm writing about. So there are. So it is partially something I might. Some motivations for this are, you could say, good and are connected with my objectives, higher objectives. Some of them not so much.
Right. And are that when you said those some of it not so much, are they the ones that you typically find yourself procrastinating with?
Well, it depends on what I focus. But yeah, I think when I think about these things I'm doing, I very often think about those not to those purposes that aren't really related to my goal. So I think my way of thinking is like, yeah, I want to finally have it behind me. I want to finally have it already done, and not to worry about this. Actually, I have it with many things. I write my goals on piece of paper, and I just want to finally have this already marked off so that I can throw it out and forget about it.
Have you practiced really getting explicitly clear on all of the parts of the goal, like chunking it down to really small parts where you can literally put them into time slots?
Well, your teachings on this chunking really helped me finally get actually started with the research, because before that I wasn't even actually started with the research, and after I learned from you about this chunking method, now I already have a first chapter completely translated. So this helped. Uh, this project is actually something that, well, it goes slow enough that I can't really get it into like 30 minutes chunks. I can't do something like, well, this is the part I will do during 30 minutes, because sometimes actually they are very easy fragments, and sometimes I have a lot of difficult words I have to translate, and it takes time. However, I do have smaller chunks which I reward myself for. These are the sub chapters. And when I finish a sub chapter, I mark it as off as another achievement. So in this manner, yeah, I do have some chunks for this. Without this, I wouldn't even start. Actually, I wouldn't be able to start this.
Yeah, very good. But like, so when you're using, I imagine that you're meaning the Pomodoro methods. When you're using the Pomodoro method, you can allocate a chunk of work, 4 or 5 Pomodoros, so that it's like 30 minutes, 5 minute break, 30 minutes, 5 minute break, 30 minutes, 5 minute break, then maybe a 30-minute break, and then continue on later to do another 30 minutes, 5 minute break, and 30 minutes, 5 minute break. If a chunk of work takes that amount of time, I'm a big fan of allocating that big block of time to that chunk of work and having that installed in your schedule at a specific time during the day to make sure that that chunk of work gets done. And like, if we're talking about the day and the goals that we set out for the day, if that's going to be a big chunk of time, have that as the priority for the day, so that if that gets done, you can still consider the day as a win overall. And the more win days that you get behind you, that to me is where self-esteem gets derived from, because it's narrative based. If we're able to say to ourselves, "Do you know what? I feel good after doing that day. Right, I didn't get to these smaller tasks, but I can do them easily tomorrow. But it's the main task that you want to be looking at. Okay, I did it. I did it. I feel good." And that's, do you see what I mean about self-esteem coming from the ability to be able to say,
Yes, I get this on the internal level as well, because I feel it when I successfully do get things done, that I feel better, and the next day I feel better. For example, when I get my task of going to bed early done, then I certainly feel better the next day, the next
for sure?
morning. But of course, in a self-esteem kind of way as well. However, when I'm doing this, I have had days like this that, like, I do a lot of stuff. The day is a win, but after that, I'm so mentally tired. I'm so mentally crushed. I feel like shit. So I'm not sure if it's just.
Are you
Uh,
filling your days with too much obligations from yourself, maybe?
well, I already minimalized the obligations to the level when it's like just the essential stuff. So, but if I do, for example, like 4 or 6 of these chunks, I had days like that, and I do this for like several days, then I start feeling like I'm like treating myself like a work robot.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm and that's when the mostly this lowering of self-esteem comes. So
But how are you rewarding yourself?
well, my reward is marking this off, and after I have this marked off, then after I have a certain amount of this marked off, for me it's 7 for habits and 4 for quests. No. But after I get that, I have like some money to spend on myself.
Okay. But is that a reward enough for you? Do you feel rewarded? Do you get the sense that you are excited about that reward? It doesn't have to be something huge, but is it
better than it used to be?
Right, okay.
Because I used to only mark this out and not give anything out for that. But I have been thinking about ways to do it, and I can't think of any way to reward myself that would be effective, which is one of my problems. Because I just have things to do, but maybe I have some things I would kind of want to buy, but I'm not really a big spender.
So I would, instead of buying, I think in terms of activities.
Activities.
Like for me, I enjoy playing my guitar. Like it doesn't have to be something that is too taxing, but like you then you say, okay, when I get this done, I'm gonna just pick up the guitar and I'm gonna play a few songs. Like there must be something in terms of the activities that you do. Maybe you like going for a nice walk in nature.
Going for a nice walk in nature is actually one of my tasks I have to do. But
do you not enjoy that?
I do enjoy it once I'm out in the wild. I don't enjoy it when I'm gathering the strength and willpower to do it.
Okay, so it's not an intrinsically exciting activity.
Yeah, it's exciting activity once I start doing it, but before that, it's the same with meditation, by the way. I feel great when I'm meditating, but I feel, but it is a bit.
Yeah, you're being dragged into it. Yeah. Okay. So I would. That's where I would maybe spend some time thinking. What are activities that I actually really enjoy doing? Everybody has some activities that they really enjoy doing. Like I love preparing a meal for me and Natalia. I love that. That's just stimulating for me. And the more complex the meal, the more I enjoy it. So maybe something in terms of creation. Maybe you create something and it feels good for you.
Well, I create all the time. Whenever I have some idea for something, I write it down so that I don't forget it. For example, lately I have been having ideas for these lyrics, and every time I have an idea, I just write it. So it's not really a reward if I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of my problems, is that when I feel like doing something, I do it. I don't treat it as a reward. I just do it. And some of these things were too stimulating for me. So I'm trying to get it kind of out of my system and not even go back to them, like video games. I know that different genres of them are different levels and different kinds of stimulation. So some of them are very, very bad because they overstimulate me and make me lose my focus from other things. Others, not so much. They are still time taxing, and they are still something that maybe I wouldn't want to be doing, because when I look back to this time that I use on them, I don't feel like it's a well spent time.
Right. And in some senses, I would have a tendency to agree with that, but you can use gaming as that type of reward as well if you really do enjoy it. Like, I'm not a huge fan of spending hours upon hours sitting in front of a game console wasting your time. I used to do it, and it's really, as I look back at now, God, I spent so much time doing nothing. It's a whole lot of doing nothing, but it can be that it gives you that dopamine hit where you're satisfying something within yourself, and it can be used as a reward like that if you put a stop clock on it and are disciplined.
The problem with gaming is that it's so stimulating.
Yeah,
It's like impossible to put a stop clock on it if it's
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah,
And if it's not a reward.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. And that's what I mean about being disciplined at doing it.
What I love doing is probably meeting with people. But, well, right now, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah.
I just like listening to people, sitting in front of them, talking to them, and getting it's like that one-on-one. Of course, I hate crowds, for example. Yeah.
So that's maybe something you should do. Maybe set yourself up ways to be able to sort of say, okay, at this time I'm going to have a conversation with someone on Zoom or Skype. And, that might be one way to satisfy a need for you to get that social need, right? To talk to obviously you need somebody to be available at a certain time, which is
it
also,
doesn't depend on me.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is also why it's a difficult reward, because I have to plan it, I have to do it, and it's actually a hassle. It's a hassle for me to plan those things, so it doesn't even feel like a reward.
Well, I see what you mean, but at the same time, you can be spontaneous. You can say, "Oh, who's available for a chat for an hour?" Like, if that social sort of thing is something that you enjoy, like, it's something that I'm gonna try and incorporate into the group. I'm gonna just have, I'm just gonna open a Zoom call, and whoever comes in, let's shoot the breeze, because I'm the same. I love that. I love that interaction where it's just like, talking about something interesting, especially with people who have some depth and are able to think philosophically, and they've an interesting perspective on life. I'm a big fan of that. So I'm going to try and do more of that. So I would encourage you to even do it if you wanted to. Anytime, say, I'd love to have a conversation. Here's a Zoom link. Let's have a chat for X amount of time. Yeah, I'd encourage you to throw it into the group.
Yeah, I could try to do it. Not sure if it would be a great reward.
Yeah, but like, I'm just shooting the breeze here, trying to guess. I definitely recommend searching your soul for things that you really, really do get a sense of reward from. Because ticking a box on a piece of paper, while I do get it, and it can be rewarding to sort of have that accumulated win in your mind and on a piece of paper, I don't think it's enough. And that could be the area where you're getting that sense of, fuck this. Because then you're not feeling rewarded, and you're not stimulated then to go the next day to follow through. Do you know what I mean? It's not enough. You're not being stimulated enough to say, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. This is a big enough win for me to then follow through tomorrow.
I get that completely. It's one of the problems which yeah, we are right now trying to find a solution for, and we have found some solutions. It's good, by the way, that there will be a recording for this. That this time I don't have to take any notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now we found, like, what? Well, you can try playing games that won't, like, just suck you into an unproductive whirl. That's one. You can try this. You can try, like, asking people for a talk, but it's like, yeah, I'm asking people to talk, and then I'm waiting for like an hour on an empty Zoom window.
Maybe not.
and maybe not, but depending probably on the size of the group and
Mm-hmm.
the hour and
Mm-hmm.
the time zone of people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like iffy as a reward. It's problem that I don't really have those things that I'm really like, yeah, I so much want to do it. I already like, if that's what I really kind of want to do, then I already kind of do it. But it's like for example, movies. Uh, Movies, some of them I kind of like to watch. I'm not really a big fan of movies or series. I sometimes watch them when I'm like eating something, so I can't do anything with my hands anyway, so I just left to watching stuff. Uh, that's what it is. And even then, I usually want to watch more of the stuff that is like building for me. It's more like teaching me something.
Mm-hmm. Moving you towards your future legacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's good, but are you really tapping into that with the activities that you are choosing? Because that's what started this conversation. Your sense of purpose, meaning, moving you towards that sense of legacy. I understand that this thesis. Would you say that this thesis is directly related to moving you towards that sense of legacy that you and the impact that you want to make?
Uh,
So it's not a perfect fit. I can tell by your facial expression
no,
that it's not a perfect fit.
no, it's not a perfect fit.
So what I would encourage you then to do is to understand what is more directly a perfect fit towards the impact and legacy that you want to manifest here. And what are the types of activities that you can start to maybe understand down in the future and prepare to sort of think about doing, because this thesis it's a finite thesis, right? It's going to be finished at a certain time. Then what? Then where does
I have a million ideas for them. And I have so many things to do. I'm never bored, so this is not my problem. This is
right,
not a problem for me.
right.
It's not like a problem. I don't want know where to go. I have so many things. I It's
So
just
this
crazy.
is a planning problem then. This is a specific planning problem that is creating this. It's saying, on this day, am I getting what I've set myself up to do? Yay or nay? And where there's more nays, the self-esteem problem is where the issue is happening. Is that would that be accurate to say?
Actually, it's not a problem like this. The problem is when my self-esteem drops, uh, despite or because of me being productive.
And what do you put that down to?
Uh, this Yeah, we have already established that this is kind of myself forcing myself to do things and not rewarding myself enough and not yeah.
But what I'm curious about is how that is related to self-esteem.
It is a difficult question for me, but probably it is because for me, the perfect and mode of my being is just being and doing things that are naturally flowing from within myself spontaneously. This spontaneity is kind of what is a sign that I'm doing the things I want to do. So when instead of spontaneity, I have these things that I wrote myself and I set myself and I push myself to do, I feel like it's forced from outside, even if I force it on myself. And I feel like it's something that is a sign that I'm not doing the things I want to be doing, even if it's connected to my longer purpose.
Where did that framework come from?
This framework of spontaneity, of being rather than doing. You mean?
Yeah. Like where did you derive that metric from?
So this actually comes from in first it comes from the Taoist philosophy and philosophy of Wu Wei. However, I think that my psychological mechanism is wrong understanding of this, I think. So I'm feeling, I'm sensing the being aspect as just being spontaneous as everything is around you, and not like developing your being to a higher level. Do you see the difference?
Maybe it's my lack of understanding of the
Okay,
actual philosophy.
okay, so it's you could be
Mm-hmm.
like an animal,
Mm-hmm.
like you just eat when you feel
Yeah.
hungry, you just yeah, everything like that.
Senses just motivate you rather than any sort
Yeah,
of general cognition, yeah?
yeah, yeah. Or you could be and you could focus on your being, but your focus is on actually your being getting higher and higher and higher, and not just doing what you feel what your senses are telling you to do right
Mm-hmm.
now, but focusing on your being as the focus of your maybe uh, targets of your goals, of your purposes in life, uh, in every moment, in every moment of life. So I think that I have this kind of um, animal-like understanding.
Which is acceptance,
Yeah.
right? It's that's acceptance, right? Incorporated into that, and tell me if I'm wrong, is the sense of I unconditionally accept myself just being the way I am, devoid of any achievements that I might make, or without any of that pay, playing a role in my sense. I'm always deserving of love and acceptance of whatever.
Yes, and that was what I have learned from some self-help books I have been reading, and I noticed that this approach helps me a great lot in really strengthening my self-esteem, this acceptance. However, I feel like this acceptance, when I'm just doing it all the time, it's not really
Yeah, but that's a
pushing me.
different philosophy then. There's a different philosophy then that is whispering in your ear saying, Krzysztof, if you're not achieving something, you're not worth fuck all. That's what it sounds like is happening somewhere.
So you mean like there are still two philosophies, my you could say old philosophy of you need to achieve something, and my new philosophy of like just being there, and
Like
they are clashing.
old philosophies do not die easy. It's not like we click our fingers one day and then the old paradigm from what we've learned for our whole lives goes away. That stuff is embedded. It gets into our bones, those things. There's still a Catholic in me. I might be atheist, but I still have leanings towards being a Christian and Catholic. You don't lose those things because what was it? I had 15, 16 years of living with those beliefs and that system being indoctrinated into me. It's not like you just leave that behind. I still find myself doing Christian-like things. Those philosophies get embedded into us. We don't just consciously wake one day and say, "Oh, now I believe objectivism 100%, and I'm a pure Randian." It's like, no, you're a mix mash of everything that you're exposed to in your culture, and until you really, and this is why it's so important to do self-knowledge, to understand why you believe certain things, where those influences come from. Because to me, the reason I asked that question is because it sounds like there is something else driving that sense that I must achieve. I must keep moving forward. Because that wouldn't matter if you just accepted this unconditionally, that no, I'm going to love myself being and just living and doing whatever I want spontaneously. There's something else driving Krzysztof to judge you yourself if you're staying in that sense of homeostasis and just achieving your being needs. That's not enough to a part of you, obviously. And that's why this urge to sort of say, come on, do something. Because there is a judgment there, right?
Yes, and on some level, well, I want to accept myself as I am, but at the same time, I don't want to be standing in place and wasting my life.
So there's contradiction there, right?
Yeah, and I see that, and um, I have been thinking about this consciously, actually, as a part of my philosophy, how to uh,
Wed them.
connect those two factors, both having actually purpose and achieving purpose, and you could say fulfilling my nature as a human being. That's what I way of saying I would say.
Mm.
So this, but at the same time accepting how I am right now, and I've been trying uh, to reconcile
Yeah.
these two things, and so far apparently I have failed at that.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd be so dramatic about it. I don't think you've
I have
failed.
failed, but I haven't failed yet. I haven't completely failed yet. I
Yeah.
haven't succeeded though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but you haven't given up, right? And you're
yeah,
you're moving towards it. You're gonna, life is full of setbacks. It's whether we stay the course and move towards the objective is what matters, right?
yeah, yeah, of course. So what from what you are saying, I can see that my uh, two modes of being are kind of connected to uh, this mode of being of just accepting myself and not worrying about anything, which sometimes like seems to push me into unproductivity. Uh, but this might be because of this other mode of being, which is still judging my worth depending on my achievements, which is, and this other mode is actually
Mm.
eating this mode's productivity, because this one is saying that uh, if that I need to achieve or else, which eats uh, my motivation to actually do things, my inner motivation to do things, because and it eats at my self-esteem when I'm doing things.
Mm.
Definitely.
Mm. So how can you sort of catch yourself before you do that? What are the key things to become aware of when that process is in action?
Hello, Buck.
All
Sorry for
right,
the wait.
no worries. So the key reason that I ask that question around, what is it that you can be aware of in the moment is because that's how growth occurs, right? We become aware of what it is that we're saying to ourselves about ourselves that runs the narrative that creates that feeling in our lives that we're fighting against. So for you, what is it that you become aware of and it's probably a feeling that you become aware of. You probably don't feel like you're hitting some sort of target, or you feel a little bit let down of yourself. Like, what is it that you need to become aware of when this...
Actually, this feeling of not hitting target, maybe not, but a feeling of pushing myself, I would say, maybe. Something like that. And I think that the main problem is that I still have yet to reconcile this being and acceptance, you could say, the philosophy of acceptance, with my pursuit of higher purposes,
Mm-hmm.
which I haven't done so far. So even if I notice that I'm doing that, I don't have an answer. I know that somewhere deep inside, I know that, or I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, that these two can be and should be reconciled. But I'm still in the process of doing it. However, I can notice when I'm myself pushing myself and feeling pushed, and maybe I can then look at this doing at the things that I'm doing as a mode in which uh, my um, my higher being is externalized. Okay, this wasn't really clear maybe to English speakers, but I might, maybe I could just look at the things that I do, even if I plan them, as not being something really different than the things I do spontaneously, because the things I do spontaneously are also an emanation of my values.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I plan are so as well.
Mm-hmm. But one of them sounds like they are in some way resented. There's a resentment built into one of the modes. That's why we're having this conversation, right? Or are
Resentment.
they both negotiated and voluntarily accepted in your mind? Because, it is a negotiation. When we're having a conversation with ourselves and we're accepting plans for ourselves, there's a level of negotiation and sort of looking at the pros and the cons, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of doing this, and whether we will or we will not accept it. And there's different parts of us that are involved in that negotiation.
Yes, and this for me occurs every time I uh, I want to do something that I don't feel like doing right now. There is this level of negotiation. Uh, so then I need to somehow connect it uh, with still. I need to still see it as a part of my being and not something that is forced from outside.
Yeah. And when you can sort of envisage yourself doing that in the future, what do you think the outcome will be of that?
So when, for example, let's say like 3 days from now or 4 days from now, I sit and I feel like watching a video, next video, and I feel like watching YouTube videos. But then I think about going into and reading the book I need to read, and which is for my thesis. When I feel forced to do it, then feel forced to do it, then I tell myself that doing this is connected with another aspect of my being, which is my purposes, which come from my values, which it makes it weaker. It makes this fear, this pressure weaker and weaker. I'm not sure. Maybe it alleviates it completely. Maybe not. I'm not sure yet.
So it's something to test. It's something to test. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd be really interested to hear how that goes. If you have that conversation with yourself, if you get something very specific that you want to do and you have that internal conversation, I'd be really interested in following up with you again in a week. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, sure. I always enjoy talking with you. I just sometimes am focused on doing the stuff that I got from you, that I don't want to bother you before I make some steps or I get stuck and I really need your help. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Like I always enjoy having these conversations. This is my life. This is what I do.
This is your purpose, your calling.
For sure. But listen, Krzysztof, this has been amazing. I'll